Jeff, many people still rely on these sirens as their first line of defense against the destructive twisters. Well, Jeff, we've all sat in these seats at one point or another, but one thing you've probably noticed over the years is they've never had any seat belts. Get a look at this. These are the two semi-truck tires that flew in through Michael Alexander's window yesterday morning. Just this one property alone had a small tree company come out earlier today, and they floated them a number of $50,000 just to clean up the tree repair. That doesn't include the busted roof and the hole in their kitchen ceiling. Well, Jeff, this year they're teaming up with 16 different local children's charities, all looking to improve the lives of kids right here in Northwest Ohio. Amanda, if passed, Issue 1 would raise the threshold to make changes to the Ohio Constitution, raising it from the current simple majority up to a 60% vote. Amanda, we just spoke to Toledo Fire just a few minutes ago. They tell us, as you can see behind me, that the fire is under control right now, just an hour after it started, a little after 11 a.m. I'm going to step aside for a moment so you can get a closer look at the damage. It's a term used to describe the psychological damage that domestic violence victims face after years of abuse, to the point where they themselves feel like they need to resort to violence to be free. The 19-page document outlines months of alleged stalking and sexually oriented offenses, all by the chief.
The suicide by cop is a real thing. And sometimes maybe I don't have enough courage to do it myself, but I can point a weapon at you and you'll do it for me. So those are all things that have to go through their head and they have to be thinking about.
That's Toledo Police Chief Mike Trenley kind of talking through what his officers consider during moments like Friday's shooting, when a Toledo man experiencing a mental health crisis pointed a rifle at officers. And this morning, the chief showed body cam footage and other evidence to support why his officers felt the need to pull the trigger. Michael Sandlin, he's been following this story for us since the very beginning. So, Michael, kind of walk us through tonight what they got from that evidence.
Jeff, between the 911 call from Robert Schaefer's wife, scanner traffic, and of course the body cam footage that you've mentioned, Chief Trenley presented a situation where his officers only had the briefest moment to make a decision that resulted in no lives lost. A split second to think, an instant to pull the trigger.
Front door, front door, front door.
That's what 3 TPD officers were faced with as 60-year-old Robert Schaefer stepped out of his home armed with a rifle.
Hands! 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 Put the gun down!
They left Schaefer in the hospital, a home riddled with bullet holes, and the neighborhood surrounding Ruskin Drive unsettled.
Luckily, we have a camera.
On Tuesday, Chief Mike Trenley used every tool they have to demonstrate how and why the morning played out the way it did. First, he explained Schaefer's background. This wasn't his first encounter with police.
He does have a little bit of a criminal history for domestic violence, assault, and some traffic violations. However, those arrests never resulted in any convictions.
And then he took us back to the day of.
911, where is your emergency?
Starting with the 911 call from Schaefer's wife.
My husband's intoxicated and he has a fat bone and he's talking about killing himself.
As police surrounded the home, Schaefer's wife can be heard saying she doesn't want to die with him, and she can be seen in body camera footage walking out of the home crying, telling the officers Schaefer was in the kitchen and was armed.
Ma'am, can you go behind that van right there?
Body cam video shows multiple angles of Schaefer coming out the door, negotiators ordering him to put down the gun, and then the police firing at him.
Shots fired, roll up, ambulance right now.
SWAT teams were able to retrieve him from his home without any more incident. Chief Trenley would be the first to admit that the view from the body cameras doesn't present the full story.
Because it's a fixed object on the chest where, as you can see now, we can swivel our heads, we can look around, we can see from our peripheral vision that a body camera may not show.
But he says based on all the evidence, he feels confident saying his officers behaved well in this situation.
Our officers are alive, and you know his wife is alive, and even he's alive. So those are all good endings to a situation that could have been far worse.
All 3 officers that pulled the trigger on Schaefer are currently on paid administrative leave as per departmental policy. And one of those officers, this is actually the second shooting he's been involved in this year. As for Schaefer himself, he's looking at some felonious assault charges once he makes it out of the hospital. Reporting in downtown Toledo, Michael Sandlin for WTOL 11.
Our top story tonight at 6 is about that UAW vote that's been going on all day long. Thanks for joining us. I'm Melissa Andrews.
And I'm Jeff Smith. And UAW members here in Toledo, they are voting to approve a potential strike, something they intend to go through if contract negotiations with the Big Three stall out next month.
Michael Sandlin joins us live from UAW Local 12 in central Toledo. And Mike, you've been to a few union halls today. What kind of turnout are you seeing for this vote?
Melissa, already thousands of people have come out from both union halls here in Toledo to come out to vote today, and there's still about an hour left in voting. Speaking to people that have come in and out of these doors, they say their rallying cry is that if the automakers aren't willing to listen, it might be time to let actions speak instead.
Corporations now, this day and age, across the board, have a tendency of forgetting the working individuals.
So they're making record profits, and they haven't restored the benefits or the pay to the level that it was before.
We made a lot of money, and we want our paychecks to reflect this.
Union members are fed up. Back in 2009, when automakers were going bankrupt, the unions agreed to cut wages and benefits to save the companies. Well, fast forward to today, and nothing in those cuts has been given back. Starting pay has remained the same for 14 years. Pensions haven't seen an increase since 2003. While union leaders continue to try to negotiate for a better deal, they say Big Three auto manufacturers Stellantis, GM, and Ford continue to not play ball.
The company's not bargaining, in our view, in good faith. They know what we say is accurate. I mean, they can't challenge that.
And Baumhauer says this leaves the unions with only one course of action to see change: a strike, draining billions from the company's pockets to try to change their minds. But in order to do so, they need the workers to be on board.
We're asking them to vote yes. We're asking them to give us that tool. Doesn't mean we'll go on strike. It just gives us the right to. Without their permission, we can't call a strike. So we can bargain all we want with the company, but we have no leverage unless the membership authorizes a strike.
And workers have come out en masse on Tuesday to give their input.
I did a count this morning at 8:02, and at 8:02 we were at 1,061 people.
With thousands more coming in throughout the day. But just how many are in favor of the strike?
I think all of them. I hope so.
So as the final ballots are cast and the votes counted, it becomes more and more likely that for the first time in 3 years, the unions will join the picket lines once again.
It's just time to make a difference and let corporations know that we are standing for what we believe in and just gainfully get what we deserve.
We'll find out the results of the election after 7 p.m., but even if both of the unions here in Toledo vote yes for strike actualization, there's still many more UAW chapters across the country that still need to get their say. We'll find out the results in totality on Thursday, and the contract deadline is September 14th. In central Toledo, I'm Michael Sandlin for WTOL 11.
And imagine waiting for an 11-year-old boy, your 11-year-old boy, to get dropped off by his school bus, only to get a call from police that your kid was actually stranded miles from home. That's what happened to one West Toledo father and his son yesterday. Our Michael Sandlin's live in Point Place tonight. And Michael, I understand this spot where you are right now, that's where the boy's dad found him?
Yeah, that's right, Jeff. He was found right here on the intersection of Suter and Lehman in Point Place, over 6 miles away from his family's apartment in West Toledo. Now, while there's two different stories for why the kids were forced off the bus, what is clear is that the bus driver did drive away, leaving the kids here unsupervised for well over half an hour, leaving them scared and their parents upset.
Anything could have happened. He could have been kidnapped, could have got hit by a car.
This is not a bus stop. It's a regular road. But it's where 11-year-old Matthew Iser Jr. and 3 other kids found themselves at the end of their first day of school. While Matthew was too shy to talk on camera, he explained to his father, Matthew Iser Sr., how he ended up there, saying it started with kids cussing on the bus ride home and the bus driver getting more and more frustrated, threatening to throw them off the side of the highway if they didn't stop.
So Matthew told me then they started to be quiet for a little bit, and then next thing you know, they started cussing again, and I guess that's where they were on Suter and Lumen, and he kicked them off the bus,
leaving the kids in the middle of the street unsupervised, and according to Matthew, driving away without another word. The only tool Matthew had was a cell phone with no data that he uses strictly for games. So he couldn't call his dad, but he could call 911, leading to one very upsetting message from TPD.
I asked the dispatcher, I'm like, are you kidding me? I'm like, he's supposed to be riding the bus home.
Matthew Sr. dropped everything and went to go pick up his son, finding him deeply upset by the whole experience. Looking for answers, Matthew Sr. called his son's school, the LEAP program, which said it was the first they were hearing of the incident, and TLC Transit, the busing company that drives the kids.
And all they told me is they would watch the video surveillance when the driver got back, and they would call me back.
Well, they still haven't called him, so that's why I decided to go to TLC Transit myself. Before I could stroll in, I was greeted by the owner, John Elston, who told me he's seen the video and he says it shows a very different side of the story. According to him, the kids weren't just cussing, they were saying slurs. And the kids weren't forced out of the bus, they let themselves out. But to be clear, WTOL 11 has not been shown the video. Elston said right now the incident is being analyzed by TLC and Washington Local, the host school for LEAP students. But Matthew Sr. says no matter what, the bus driver had his son's life in his hands.
I want to press charges and I want to sue this company because this ain't right.
At 3:30 today, Washington Local Schools held a meeting with TLC Transit. I received a statement from Washington Local's communications director. She says, in part, we're investigating what happened and we'll be following up with our service provider to ensure student safety protocols are always followed. Reporting in Point Place, I'm Michael Sandlin for WTOL 11.